The Russians are asking for a ceasefire on the front. Will Zelensky and Putin meet? Trump is suing journalists over material related to the Epstein case. The Russian summer offensive failed due to unsuccessful river crossings. The Ukrainian armed forces attacked an oil depot in Sochi. Germany will provide Ukraine with weapons to strike targets on the territory of the Russian Federation. And fierce fighting has broken out on the border between Cambodia and Thailand. Hello, my name is Katerina Nesterenko. And right now, the main stories. But first, like this video if you support Ukraine and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch with you here, YouTube. While we fight for the truth in the rear, our guys are fighting for peace on the front lines. Donbas remains consistently the hottest spot for us. According to Deep State, the Russian army has advanced near Torske in the Lyman direction and continues to assault that area. However, the assaults near Chasiv Yar in the Kramatorsk sector were unsuccessful. The military decided to show one of these failed assaults. The direction is not specified, but that's exactly where the Russians thought they could create a sort of effect. A surprise. But something obviously went wrong. Our pilots acted precisely and confidently. Targets were identified, the assault actions were disrupted, and the enemy's equipment and manpower were hit with heavy fire. The major offensive failed. Also, as can be seen on the map, there is progress in the Kharkiv region near the village of Zelenskyy. They are not giving up attempts to seize land in the Sumy region either. In total, over 1,000 Russian soldiers and dozens of pieces of military equipment were destroyed in a single day of the enemy. Our soldiers, despite the Russian onslaught, they are also successfully implementing new technologies, both for defense and to support their own troops. The 5th Assault Kiev Brigade has shown unique footage of how they use the robotic system to evacuate
a severely wounded soldier lying on the battlefield, suffering from his injuries.
Give me a sign on camera and start moving as soon as you hear it.
We are moving out right now.
We are moving out. Transferring to the shelter.
Go.
Ah, you're behind the tree, back up, back up. Come on, I don't have...
The box, let's go. Wait, please just don't rush too much, a little bit.
The soldier was delivered to the doctors as quickly as possible and, most importantly, with minimal risk. Bravo! But the Russians themselves are in no hurry to retrieve their own. That's why sometimes our soldiers even have to spend the night on dead Russians. Fighters from the 3rd Assault Brigade shared how a Russian dugout full of dead Russians became their shelter.
We need to gather our position with the guys, so you understand we're standing ahead of the infantry. So we don't have any certainties. Special side of our position is frozen, and we're shooting from here. Something like that, basically.
And here, through the dugout. I'm literally crawling over a corpse. Right? Yeah, they're here.
Am I there? Yeah, right there. Under your feet, that's just a pant leg. Climbing, fall through. Yeah.
I'll turn around.
See, they dug him up again. They were digging him up. Or climb in. He's falling down there. Right here. You, sitting on him. The leg, it's intact. I stepped on something. But yeah, I got hit by a fragment.
Honestly, I'm amazed at how easily and with a smile on their faces, the soldiers talk about their incredibly tough days at the front. I am endlessly grateful to them. If you feel the same way, leave them some kind comments. I know they'll definitely see them because they watch our episodes. The Russians don't understand words. They don't want peace. And they continue to kill and destroy, not just with attacks on the front. Last night, Ukrainian cities were attacked. In Cherkasy, more than 7 people were injured, including 1 child. They targeted civilians. 20 residential buildings were damaged. Odessa also came under fire. The Russians destroyed a 9-story residential building. There are injuries. 5 people were rescued from under the rubble. In addition to the building, the well-known Privoz market was also on fire. Architectural landmarks in the historic city center, which are under UNESCO protection, were also damaged. But our people know how to respond to the enemy with dignity. That's why there was an air raid alert all night in Krasnodar Krai.
They hit something over there.
It was hot at the resort in Sochi. Explosions were heard at the oil depot. The Russian Ministry of Murder claims those were just fragments. Attention, this is what drone debris looks like by their standards.
Here it is. Look closely. A crash. It's burning right next to your house.
Five strikes hit the same spot. The Russians didn't see any air defense missiles.
It is important to emphasize that there was not a single one of them present, indicating a complete absence of any individual or item in question.
By the way, during the attack, an interesting question was raised. Why are they bombing Sochi and not Russia? Listen closely. They should be bombing Russia. But even Russian civilians are helping our military. In the Kherson direction, the season of burning out the filth has begun.
Here was our kitchen.
Well, you won't get out.
Yes.
Massive fires have led to everything burning at their positions. From equipment, vehicles and property to dugouts, ammunition, bathhouses and kitchens. All that's left are bare huts, but there's no help because, as we know, they have problems with water. And not just that, Russia is burning all the way to Zabaykalsky. And for everything, they have one answer. The arsonists are definitely working for Ukraine. Their own people couldn't do this.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
I've just detained a few people. In my life, we're working in Ukraine.
Ukrainians effectively defend, attack and repel Russians at the front and in the Krasnodar region. Well done. However, the Russians do not want peace. And they made that very clear the other day in Istanbul. It was there that the negotiating delegations of Ukraine and Russia met. This is already the third one. The head of our delegation is Rustem Umerov. The Russians, meanwhile, once again sent the historian Medinsky.
Let me give a historical example. In China, there was a civil war.
Ukraine is ready to negotiate. An unconditional ceasefire and an end to strikes on civilian and critical infrastructure is the first and main condition from our side. But Medinsky did not hear this. On the contrary, he proposes short truces on the front for 24 to 48 hours, simply to collect the wounded and the bodies.
We once again propose this to the Ukrainian side. In our view, it is very important to consider the issue of declaring short truces of 24 to 48 hours along the line of contact, along the front line, so that medical teams have the opportunity to evacuate the wounded. There would be an opportunity for commanders to retrieve the bodies of their soldiers.
But as for actually doing something to stop the killings altogether, they have no such plans. It is also proposed to organize a meeting between President Zelensky and the so-called President Putin, with the participation of the presidents of the US and Turkey by the end of August. But let me remind you, the Russians are not interested in peace. That's why, as Medinsky stated, the positions of Ukraine and Russia regarding the memorandum are very far apart.
In order for such a meeting to take place, it is necessary to first work out the terms of the agreement and understand what would be discussed at this meeting. In fact, at this meeting, the agreement should not be discussed but finalized and signed, like we say, to put the finishing touch on the matter. Meeting just to start everything from scratch again. There's no point in discussing all this.
Another key condition was the continuation of the humanitarian track to bring all Ukrainians home, both military and civilians. It was at this meeting that an agreement was reached to exchange more than 1,200 prisoners of war from each side. And it was on this evening that we received good news. Another group of seriously ill and severely wounded Ukrainian fighters returned from captivity.
Can you believe it or not? I've been home for 3.5 years. I don't even know where I was.
Defenders of Donetsk region returned, including those from Mariupol, as well as from Sumy and Kharkiv regions.
Come on now, everyone, let's go home. It's getting quite late.
Welcome us home. Please take this.
It is also known that the last defender of Zmini Island has returned to his homeland. The oldest among the returned heroes is 55 years old. The youngest is 27. They endured captivity, pain, and waiting. Finally home. We welcome you and sincerely thank you for your protection. I know that people are watching us all over the world. Write in the comments which country you are watching us from and whether you support Ukraine in its fight against evil. I always enjoy reading your comments. US President Donald Trump wants to personally make decisions regarding sanctions against Russia. White House spokesperson Karoline Leavitt says that Trump intends to independently determine the future course of sanctions policy towards the Russian Federation.
Today, Senate Republicans announced they are abandoning the bill on sanctions against Russia because the president wants to act independently. Can you explain what exactly the president plans to do?
Listen, the president has been in close contact with his friends in the Senate, especially Senator Lindsey Graham, regarding this issue. But the president has always emphasized that he is the commander-in-chief and the president, it's not for nothing, and he is deeply involved in this conflict from the very beginning. And that's why when it comes to decisions about sanctions, the president wants to keep that right and authority for himself.
And what do you think of Trump's position on this? Do you think the Senate should be involved in sanction policy towards Russia? German General Christian Freuding has called on Ukraine to focus on attacking Russian targets, airfields and factories involved in weapons production. Freuding says that further Ukrainian attacks on Russian airfields could play an important role in, I quote, weakening the offensive capability of the Russian army.
You can indirectly affect the offensive potential of Russian strike forces before they are deployed. Use long-range air warfare assets to strike aircraft and airfields before they are put into use. Weapons production facilities are also targeted.
The fact that Ukraine will be able to strike Russian territory is also mentioned by the head of the German Foreign Ministry, Johann Wadefull. The official says that in the near future, the Ukrainian army will receive new weapons that will enable it to strike against Russia.
Ukraine has the right to defend itself from attacks. It will also have the capability to affect Russian territory. But we will not disclose to the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin which weapon systems we are supplying to Ukraine, said Wadefull. We are supplying Ukraine, Wadefull stated.
Obviously, it is unknown exactly which weapons are being discussed and what the specific timelines are. However, a trend among the German authorities already seems to be taking shape. The US Attorney General's office has informed Trump that his name appears in the files of the Epstein case, and Trump himself is going to sue the Wall Street Journal over that very same case. Epstein. In fact, CNN journalists report that the US Attorney General, Pam Bondi, that is the prosecutor, informed President Donald Trump in May that his name appears in the case of the late financier who was convicted of sexual crimes, financier Jeffrey Epstein. And now let's provide a bit of context regarding the Epstein case.
He was accused of organizing the sexual exploitation of underage girls. According to the investigation, starting from the 1990s, he created a network for recruiting and exploiting dozens and possibly even hundreds of minors. In 2008, he made a deal with the Florida prosecutor's office, a so-called plea agreement, and he served only 13 months in jail with the right to leave for work. In July 2019, Epstein was arrested again on charges of trafficking minors for sexual exploitation. On the 10th of August 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell at a New York detention center.
Trump had already promised during his election campaign to reveal the details of the suicide. Epstein. However, in May, FBI Director Kesh Patel, a Trump appointee. In 2025, he stated that all evidence indicated that Epstein died of suicide. Meanwhile, Trump himself recently filed a lawsuit against the newspaper Wall Street Journal and is demanding $10 billion from the publication. This is over a piece in which journalists published what was allegedly a letter from Trump to Epstein.
The publication released a piece stating that in 2003, Epstein's assistant compiled an album of letters from his friends for his birthday, including one from Trump. Wall Street Journal described the alleged letter from Trump to Epstein as obscene. And yes, the letter was framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to have been hand-drawn with a marker.
Additionally, during an argument between Trump and Musk, the latter claimed that Trump was allegedly mentioned in Epstein's files. Therefore, according to the businessman, this is the real reason why these Epstein files have not been made public. And what do you think what could be in those files? Epstein's files about Trump? And apparently the American president does have something to be afraid of. The Russian summer offensive is stalling due to unsuccessful river crossings. Forbes writes that one of the biggest problems for the Russian army throughout the entire war has been crossing rivers. And now the Russians cannot advance actively because they are unable to successfully cross rivers.
In May 2022, Ukraine destroyed an entire Russian battalion tactical group as it attempted to cross a river, the Seversky Donets. Although Russian forces have achieved some successes on the battlefield, thanks to new tactics and technologies, their ability to conduct river crossings has not improved. This persistent shortcoming has become a critical vulnerability and has effectively halted several major operations in their current summer offensive.
In addition, journalists mentioned that the Dnipro River played an important role in the battle for Kherson, ultimately forcing the Russians to abandon the city in November 2022.
In November 2022, Ukraine recaptured the Western Bank during a counteroffensive when Russian troops left the city of Kherson. Then, in October 2023, Ukraine crossed the river and established a bridgehead on the eastern bank, but later withdrew from that position and took up a strong defensive position on the western bank. Since then, Russian forces have repeatedly tried to regain their positions along the western bank in order to retake Kherson and the surrounding areas.
Crossing the Oskil River in the Kharkiv region also caused the Russians significant losses.
Russian attempts to cross the Oskil began at the end of December 2024 with assaults near Dvorichna, Novomlinsk and Tupolia. All of them were repelled. In March 2025, Russia employed a new tactic, using drones to detect Ukrainian positions and coordinate fire in support of infantry crossings. Despite this adaptation, the operation ultimately failed due to Ukrainian counter-drone systems and a lack of coordination between the crossing and artillery support.
Currently, as Forbes journalists write, the Russians have no obvious solution to this problem.
Although the Russian-Ukrainian war is often associated with the rapid adoption of new technologies, traditional challenges such as river crossings continue to shape the battlefield. Russia's repeated failures in these operations have led to significant losses and are now a major obstacle to the success of their summer offensive.
A shootout occurred between soldiers on the border between Thailand and Cambodia. The countries are accusing each other of provocation. In fact, it is known that the clash took place near ancient temples in the border area. However, it wasn't just an exchange of gunfire. Thai authorities report that grenades fired from the Cambodian side killed at least 2 civilians and wounded 2 more. 2 Thai soldiers were also injured.
The conflict on this border has been ongoing for decades, but in recent weeks it has entered a new phase of escalation.
The reason for this escalation was that recently, in the border area, a Thai soldier lost his limbs due to an explosion, a landmine. At that time, Thailand accused Cambodia of allegedly having recently laid mines in the border area. The Cambodian side denies this. They remind everyone that millions of mines still remain on their territory from the times of prolonged civil wars. In response, Thailand recalled its ambassador from Cambodia and expelled Cambodian diplomats. Later, clashes broke out between soldiers in the border area. In short, it's hard to say whose side the truth is on. We will continue to monitor the situation and report everything in our next broadcasts. Give this video a like to support what we do. And be sure to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss the next episodes. See you soon!